Welcome back.
Hi.
I'm vaccinated, don't worry.
That's great, but let's follow protocol.
So Judge Chin and the jury coming in about the same time you have people coming in. I was just wondering which one's going to be the more priority, the jurors or your judge? Get everything before there's a lot. You don't know, you don't have an answer.
I don't have an answer.
You're supposed to say YGR is more important than
what I want to say is this is all real stupid and this shouldn't be happening right now. Anyway, I never said that.
Oh, Your Honor, I'm just wondering who's got the priority tomorrow morning if we get backed up. You want your people, I hear, they have to be here at 8 in your courtroom, right? No, well, the jurors are coming in anywhere between 7:30 and... I'm going to tell them the jurors are admitted and okay. You open up at 7, right? Correct. They can sit in the conference room. Okay. All right. But he's in tomorrow, you know that, right? That's Jim? Yeah. Okay. Answers the question.
Very good.
All right, thank you. See you. Nice seeing you back.
Thanks. Hey, did you get your break? Oh, okay, yeah, they're in there. Oh, goodness. Yeah, it's a little weird, but... If you need anything else, Francis, let me know. Yeah. Bench ready and stuff like that. Yeah. I always put my foot up when I listen, because my thing's gone. Like all these little things. Right. He has just such a bad accent. Is it an accent? It's not. It's just a number. You know? Like a surfer dude accent or something? Ready Player One. I never saw that movie. No. The gamer guy who put the whole universe together. That's who he was. Oh. He just. If you see that, it's a cute movie. I like it. Oh yeah. If you ever see it, that's the movie one. I see.
Just you. You don't want to say something? No, I am.
We could, yeah.
I said like 5.
Okay. It's probably best if it's something that needs to be posted in a quick manner. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We could ask her. She's always like staying up way too late trying to post stuff. So, I would like to close that door just so people don't sneak up on me if I have the headphones on to block out the work that's going on outside. And because I did have like a CSO walk in on me, and I didn't realize he was there. It was right here. Well, I just want to let you know. I can close it. I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to close it. So it's unlocked. Okay.
You got that? Just because. Let's do.
So I'm going to have to get with Wilmar, and he's going to have to.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to. there's sound. It takes a second to come up, so. I'm testing on the defense table right now, just so everybody checks knows I'm testing on the defense. Everything.
Now let's discuss a research system designed.
Okay. All right. I'm going to switch back because plaintiff will need it over there. I'm going to switch over plaintiff. Okay, mics are on. The mics are on the tables. Mics are on. We'll probably hear conversations at the table. Okay.
You can go ahead and sit up there. Watch when she comes back into the court. Be over here, and then when she comes back in, I'll get you on the stand. Unless, Ms. Jones, you put the witnesses on the stand before the judge comes back in?
Yeah, it's fine to go up. That's fine. Thank you for asking me. So, Mr. Doran, I turned on that front mic in case you wanted, though you've been great about standing up if you needed to say, it's up to you. Standing is good, but I did turn on that. Yeah, just go ahead and tap it. I've got it on to be sure I've got the right one turned on. Yeah, just to let you know, but that's okay. And then I do the same on the plaintiff's table, turn on the one mic. But just to let you know, all the sound now at the table will be carried over. It's the hot mic. Okay, the judge is going to come right out at 1:15. That's 2 minutes. 2 minute warning.
And do you have water up there?
I mean, I'm just, you know what? I just want you to know we unplugged one thing up front and had to keep hearing the people, so that's how so, yeah. Right, either way, yeah, yeah. All right, remain seated, court is in session, come to order.
All right, we are back on the record. Record will reflect that the parties are present. Mr. Sweeney is on the stand. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sweeney, does Epic make any apps for smartphones? Yes. What is a smartphone?
A smartphone is, to me, it's a portable supercomputer, and it has the capabilities of a cell phone. It has a high-resolution screen, touch input, and internet connectivity that is connected to a cellular network.
Are you familiar with the term feature phone?
Yes.
What is a feature phone?
feature phone is something like a cell phone that can name it here. There's a device for making phone calls and sending and receiving text messages, but generally that's the ability to run sophisticated apps.
And does Epic make any apps for feature phones?
No.
Why not?
Feature phones don't have nearly the performance or features required to run modern app or entertainment experience like Fortnite.
Let's talk about the word native app. Are you familiar with that phrase?
Yes.
What is a native app?
A native app is a program that is able to run directly on the hardware of the device and has full access to the CPU, the device's processor and graphics capabilities at the extent the operating system exposes them, and it runs at full performance on the device.
And you've used the phrase operating system. What's an operating system?
An operating system is a piece of software that runs at the highest level of security on a device and maintains the isolation of applications running on the device and supports them. The operating system ensures that apps don't access data that are not allowed to access and prevents apps from interfering with each other.
And can you name some types of operating systems?
There are computer operating systems like Apple's macOS and Microsoft Windows, and there are smartphone operating systems like iOS and Android and others.
And does Nintendo for the Switch have an operating system? And does it have a particular name?
Generally, the console platforms use proprietary operating systems or variations of an open source operating system that aren't given a brand name for themselves.
So is that true also for Xbox? Does Xbox have an operating system?
Yes.
And it doesn't have a particular name?
I think it has various names it's referred to as internally, but it isn't marketed as a brand.
Is Fortnite available as a native app?
Yes.
On what platforms is Fortnite available as a native app?
Currently, Windows, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, and Android.
And
Android.
And prior to August 2020, was Fortnite available as a native app on any other platform in addition to the ones you just mentioned?
Yes, it was also available on iOS and macOS.
Why did Epic make Fortnite available on so many platforms?
Fortnite is a social experience. The key to success and longevity is the ability for players to connect with all of their friends. And so that requires supporting all of, not only the device that you might own as a gamer, but all of the devices your friends might own in order to connect to them.
Let's talk about the iOS platform. What are the ways to distribute a native app on the iOS platform?
The iOS Appstore is the general way of distributing apps to consumers. However, Apple makes a number of other mechanisms available for limited purpose distribution, for example, to enterprise employees or to testers working on a software development environment.
In your experience, is the enterprise way of distributing an iOS app open to consumers for native app distribution?
No, Apple forbids its Apple Enterprise Program mechanisms of software installation on iOS from being used for consumer app distribution.
You also mentioned a test environment. Is that test environment available for consumers for native iOS app distribution?
It's not available for general distribution of apps to consumers, although if a particular consumer were participating in a small-scale test, you might be able to access a given app that way.
Are you familiar with the term side loading?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Sideloading refers to the ability to install software onto a device from a source other than the platform's official store.
Does iOS allow sideloading generally for consumers?
iOS does not allow sideloading.
Does the Mac OS environment allow for sideloading?
Yes.
Let's talk about something called a web app. Are you familiar with that term?
Yes.
What's a web app?
A web app is an application written to run within a web browser using the web browser's limited technologies for display, such as HTML, and its limited abilities for programming, such as JavaScript. A web app will generally run within a web browser on different platforms.
So how is a web app different from a native app?
A web app is limited to the set of APIs available within a web browser, which are considerably more limited and less powerful than the capabilities available to native apps. And they also have memory limitations and other constraints applied to them within this web browser environment.
Is Fortnite available as a web app?
No.
Why not?
Web apps are not nearly powerful enough to run a modern 3D real-time experience such as Fortnite.
Have you heard of the phrase video game streaming?
Yes.
What does that phrase mean?
Game streaming refers to an emerging usage scenario where a user will attempt to play a game on a device while the software for the game is actually running on a server hosted somewhere else in the cloud. And instead of the software running natively on the user's device, the user's device essentially sends input over to the cloud server. The cloud server runs the app and then streams video back to the user's device so that the user can see view of what the app is doing on the cloud server and be able to interact with it. This cloud-hosted app in real time.
So in the streaming scenario, the app is running off of a server, and in the native environment, it's running off of the operating system directly?
Yes.
And do you have any understanding as to whether or not the user experience for Fortnite differs at all when an app for Fortnite is being streamed versus run natively?
Yes.
Could you describe that to the court, please?
In the case of web streaming, the experience is very highly dependent on the quality of the user's internet connection. But rather than seeing your actions reflected immediately on screen, you have to wait for your input to be sent to the server and for the resulting video to be sent back to you. And so unless the user has a very high quality internet connection, and it's very close to the data center, the experience is degraded often significantly, both in the form of reduced bandwidth, so lower graphical quality, and higher latency, meaning more lag between when you're trying to aim in Fortnite and when you actually see the resulting movement occur. And then additionally, there are often significant costs associated with hosting the servers in the cloud. Instead of running the application on the device which the user has already purchased, there's additional hardware involved that has to be paid for somehow, and yet it has to be paid for.
Is Fortnite currently available for streaming on iOS?
No.
Does Epic have any plans to make Fortnite available for streaming on iOS?
No. Epic is working with NVIDIA and their GeForce, GeForce now service to experiment and privately test a version of Fortnite which runs on NVIDIA servers, but which players can experience from an iOS device using the Safari web browser.
As you sit here today, do you have any view as to whether or not that would provide a user experience comparable to the use of Fortnite running as a native app?
Well, in my experience using it, it has significantly higher latency and lower graphical quality. For other users, the experience varies, and certainly there'll be additional costs. And for users, in order to access the game in this way.
Can you explain what you mean by additional costs for users?
Yes. Well, within Digital G4 Now service, to be able to play a game anytime, you have to be a subscriber and pay a fee for NVIDIA. So they have a free version of the service where users can line up and wait for a free server to become available so they can play. So this cost of the cost associated with buying additional hardware since the device isn't running on the, since the application is not running on the device the user already owns. An additional cost of bandwidth needed to move the data back and forth, and the cost of bandwidth is to some extent attributed to the data center using the bandwidth, but also if the user is using a smartphone on a wireless data plan, then there would be perhaps additional charges for very high bandwidth usage.
I'm familiar with something called a console.
Yes.
What is a console?
Console is a fixed function device that is typically plugged into a television and controlled using a game controller or joystick. Specifically on games and entertainment experiences, some of the consoles will stream videos through Netflix and other services.
And what companies make consoles?
Microsoft makes Xbox, Sony makes PlayStation, and Nintendo makes the Switch.
And do you have familiarity with the Microsoft Xbox?
Yes.
And do you have familiarity with the performance of the Microsoft Xbox?
Yes.
Do you have familiarity with the performance of the Sony PlayStation?
Yes.
And do you have familiarity with the Nintendo Switch performance?
Yes.
Right. Is Fortnite available on each of the devices, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch?
Yes.
Are there any differences that you're aware of in the performance of Fortnite on a console versus on a smartphone?
Yes, the performance of Fortnite on the Nintendo Switch is similar to many smartphones. The performance of Fortnite on Xbox and PlayStation is typically much higher. You have higher graphics fidelity. You have certain graphical features which are available only on high-end consoles and PCs, such as advanced shadows and reflections that make the 3D world of Fortnite more realistic.
All right. Are you familiar with the power source for the Switch?
Yes, the Switch is unique in that it can either be plugged into the wall and a television and run with very high performance, or it can be used as a handheld device that's not plugged in using a battery and connected to a Wi-Fi network.
How does the performance of Fortnite in particular vary between the smartphone and the Switch, if there is any difference?
The performance of Fortnite on smartphones and Switch is similar. The big difference with Switch is that it only works when it's connected to a Wi-Fi network, so you can't use it in many on-the-go scenarios.
All right, I'm going to show you some devices and ask you if you recognize them. I'll put you.
So, Ms. Forrest, as you know, our movable, if you're not standing with the mic, no one outside this courtroom, and in fact, maybe not even people in the courtroom can hear you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bornstein, maybe you all can move that table over for her so that she can actually access it while she's at the mic.
Mr. Sweeney, I'd like to show you a device that has been labeled for identification as PX277. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may. Am I going to get to take this one home? I've mentioned before, my daughter uses the Switch, so.
Mr. Sweeney, do you recognize the device that I have placed in your hand that has been marked for identification as PX277?
Yes, it's the PlayStation 5.
All right, and why don't you put that one down? And let me show you what's been marked for identification as PX2778. Mr. Sweeney, do you recognize what's been marked for identification as PX2778?
Yes, this is an Xbox Series X.
And lastly, let me show you what's been marked for identification as PX2776. Mr. Sweeney, do you recognize what's been marked as PX2776?
Yes, this is a Nintendo Switch.
Your Honor, I would offer these three devices, PX2777, 2778, and 2776 into evidence.
Okay, well, I'll admit them, and we will, I do have to say, one of my favorite cases was a wine trademark case, and I admitted into evidence about 30 bottles of wine. And at the end of the case, I did send out an order to all the parties saying, within the next 30 days, you must retrieve all your evidence or the court will dispose of it. At which point in day 31, all of the law clerks came to chambers and we promptly disposed of the evidence. Go ahead.
Mr. Sweeney, does Epic have any Fortnite distribution agreements with console makers?
Yes.
And does Epic pay the console makers any form of compensation in connection with those distribution agreements?
Yes.
And what's the word for the compensation that's paid?
It's generally called a commission or a console fee.
And what's the typical, if there is a typical commission that Epic pays to the console makers for distribution?
It's 30%.
And prior to August 2020, did Epic pay Apple a commission in connection with the distribution of Fortnite?
Yes.
In Epic's view, is there a difference between the 30% commission that it pays to console makers and the 30% commission it paid to Apple prior to August 2020?
Objecting, Your Honor. First of all, foundation. The question was, is this to Epic as opposed to Mr. Sweeney? And second of all, it calls for a narrative.
I'm sorry?
He said calls for a narrative. I don't think it calls for a narrative. That's overruled. But you can rephrase with respect to the other.
All right. Mr. Sweeney, in your view as the CEO of Epic, is there any difference between the 30% commission that is paid to console makers by Epic and the 30% commission that's paid by Epic to Apple?
Yes.
Can you please describe that for the court?
Yes, the general bug in the console industry has long been the idea that console hardware is often sold at or below its manufacturing cost in order to bring on a larger user base. And then that cost is offset by contributions by the software developers to the hardware. And so the intended effect of this is quite different in the smartphone model, where the user buys a device by a business that's typically making a profit, and then the publishers are forced to pay a commission to the platform maker outside of any negotiated economic bargain, which is aimed at making hardware more widely available to customers in a generally.
Could I ask you, Fortnite, is there a version of Fortnite that you're using right now? Or is it just Fortnite? Fortnite 10, Fortnite 2.0?
No, well, Fortnite's just evolving. We've never created a sequel.
Okay, so in 2007 or 2008, was Fortnite, the technology required to play Fortnite, could that have been played on an iPhone?
But no, Your Honor, in that time frame, the iPhone was not powerful enough to play a game as graphically elaborate as Fortnite.
So even though you've mentioned that there's something about the console hardware, Apple did have to do something for the iPhone itself, right, in terms of the technology of the iPhone, in order for it to be sophisticated enough to play your software.
No.
So how is that any different from consoles? Not so much about the payment piece, but about the development of the technology that allows your product to be played.
I think the development of the hardware technology and the operating system is very similar. My comparison is only between the differences of the business models underlying the different platforms.
Yes, let me just see, Your Honor, if I can ask a few questions in that area. Mr. Sweeney, are there any graphical performance differences between the iPhone as it exists in August 2020 and the consoles as they existed in August 2020?
Yes, the consoles have considerably more graphics performance, therefore the capability of displaying more realistic images.
And are there any other differences between the speed at which the consoles were able to execute the Fortnite application on consoles versus on a smartphone?
Consoles generally have more computing performance, so they're able to run more realistic simulations such as particle systems.
Does Epic distribute Fortnite on PCs?
Yes.
And how is Fortnite obtained for a PC?
Fortnite on PC is available from the Epic Games Store. You obtain it by installing the Epic Games Store from our website if you don't already have it, and then clicking a button to download Fortnite, which is available for free.
All right. And can you compare the performance of Fortnite on a PC versus the performance on a smartphone?
The PC ranges have some very low-end laptop devices, which have
Low-end laptop
devices, which have similar performance to a high-end smartphone, all the way up to desktop PCs, which have far more performance, sometimes 20 times more graphics performance.
Okay. And do these differences and similarities have any significance for gaming?
Yes, it makes the experience of Fortnite very different between console, PC, and smartphone devices.
Let's change topics for a moment. And you mentioned Project Liberty earlier, and at the very outset of the testimony. What was Project Liberty?
Project Liberty was the code name that we gave within Epic to our project to challenge the smartphone makers' policies, both Apple's and Google's.
Let's put Project Liberty to one side for a moment. Can you think of any instances in which that you're aware of when Epic deliberately broke any Apple rules in connection with the distribution of Fortnite on iOS, other than Project Liberty?
No, not one aware.
Has Epic ever operated at variance from Apple's policies that you're aware of?
Yes.
And can you describe the instance or instances that you're aware of?
Well, there's two general cases. One is we've at times had a misunderstanding of policies, or we've had bugs in our software which caused a policy violation. And number two, we've at many times talked to Apple about the policy and received a waiver from the policy, either for a limited period of time or in general.
All right. Are you familiar with something called the Apple Enterprise Program?
Yes.
What is that?
The Apple Enterprise Program is an Apple program enabling corporations to develop software for iOS and to distribute their iOS software directly to their employees without being subject to the iOS review guidelines and without distributing their app through the iOS App Store.
Are you familiar with something called an Enterprise Certificate?
Yes.
What is that?
This is a software signing certificate, which enables an enterprise or a corporation to place their own stamp of approval on software, and allowing users to have that certificate installed on their iOS device to install software from that corporation without going through the App Store.
Was there ever any time that Epic considered the feasibility of using an enterprise certificate to distribute an app?
Yes, I started a project to explore the technical and legal feasibility of using Apple enterprise certificates in order to distribute software addresses to consumers on iOS.
Did Epic ever distribute an app to consumers using an Apple enterprise certificate?
No.
Let's turn to the summer of 2020. Did there come a time when Apple removed Fortnite from the App Store?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately the date?
That was August 13th, 2020.
All right. Prior to August 13th, 2020, did you have any discussions with Apple regarding any changes that you wanted them to make?
Yes, Epic had attempted to have discussions with Apple leadership since at least 2015, and possibly earlier. We did no Apple had not been willing to have a serious discussion on the topic. So around June of 2020, I sent Apple leadership a letter with some very specific requests by Epic to Apple to allow us to release an iOS, a store for iOS, and to accept that payment on iOS.
Was there other correspondence that you exchanged with Apple prior to August 2020 that relate to the same general set of issues?
I remember
you don't have to describe all of them, just whether or not there was.
The thing is, there were around a dozen outreach attempts by myself and Epic Vice President Mark Bain, to try to arrange a meeting with Apple leadership folks to discuss opening up iOS as a platform. And other than a chance encounter between myself and Mike Fisher for about 5 minutes, there was no discussion at all.
I'd like to show you what's been marked for identification as DX4477. Your Honor, may I approach? On the list that had been provided earlier, it came up during the opening this morning, so I can provide Your Honor with a copy right now, or the clerk if you'd like.
Okay, that's fine. 4477?
DX4477. Would the clerk like a copy as well?
Okay, I should say there were no discussions between Epic and Apple leadership folks other than the net issue discussion. I at times had the opportunity to share my thoughts with various Apple employees that arose on it.
Do you have a copy, Mr. Dorn?
Thank you.
Could review this document, Mr. Sweeney, and let me know when you've done so.
Yes.
All right. Do you recognize it's been marked for identification as DX4477?
Yes. This is the email I sent to the Apple executive team on June 30 asking for permission to do these.
All right. And, Your Honor, I would offer DX4477 into evidence.
Any objection?
No.
All right. Mr. Sweeney, this morning during the opening, there was a reference to a side